Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Finance Panel meeting. I'm Kath Flanagan-Jones. I'm the Senior Scrutiny Officer. As this meeting is the first meeting since the Council AGM, we have to elect a chair and a vice chair. Prior to me doing that, if I can just notify everybody of the apologies that we've received so far. I've received apologies from Cabinet members Councillor Matthew Dorrance and Councillor Jake Berriman. Both are on other council business today. I've received apologies from Marianne Evans, Debbie Jones and Andy Thompson, officers. I'm not aware of any other apologies, but if anybody knows, please advise. Okay, without any further ado then, I've received one nomination for Councillor Allard to be re-elected as chair for the ensuing year. I am asking for a proposer from the committee. Councillor Peat, is that yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to propose, Kath.
I'm asking for a seconder.
I'm happy to second.
Are there any other nominations before I proceed? No. If I can ask the committee members to raise hands, preferably put your cameras on if able, and raise hands so I can take a vote on Councillor Allard being. Okay, looking at the hands being raised, that is unanimous. Councillor Allard, you are therefore duly elected as Chair of Finance Panel for the ensuing year. Would you like me to carry on for Vice Chair?
Yes, please. Thanks, Kath, and thanks, everybody.
Okay. For Vice Chair for Finance Panel, I've received a nomination of Councillor Chris. Your hand is still raised. Okay. For Vice Chair, I've received a nomination of Councillor Pete Lewington to be re-elected as Vice Chair for the ensuing year. Can I have a proposer?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Jeremy, Councillor Allard. Yeah. Any other nominations? Or is it just Councillor Pete? Okay, I'll take silence. There's no other nominations. Can I have a vote from the membership, please? Okay. Again, I think that is unanimous. Is there any abstentions or? Councillor Arwell?
No. I
I was
long hand.
Okay. I duly then that Councillor Peter is nominated as Vice Chair of Finance Panel for the ensuing year. Councillor Allard, if I can hand back over to you as Chair.
Thank you very much, Kath, and thanks to all the panel members as well. Go straight on to item 4, which is declarations of interest, to receive any disclosures of interest by members relating to items to be considered at the meeting. Any declarations? No? Thank you. And then we go on to the minutes, item 5, minutes from some time ago now, 18th of Feb. It feels a very long time ago now. So those are the minutes. There was under item 3, the discussion around the accuracy of the minutes. I think Kath went back and listened to the recording because Councillor David Thomas wanted them changed. However, it wasn't you that said those words, Councillor Thomas. It was one of the officers who said those words. So what was recorded in the minutes was accurate. So I suggest that we go back to the original minutes there, if that's okay with everybody. Yeah.
It's fine, yeah.
Any other issues or comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No. You will see a couple of action points there. I think they will be picked up fairly soon, or they've been dealt with. Actions on page 5. I've had that discussion with the Chair of Health and Care. And Yes, and the other action is quite self-explanatory. Action on page 6.
His hand up.
And did we? Yes, was that completed? Did you everybody get that breakdown? I really don't remember the issue around that breakdown, because there was a comments on the budget papers that there wasn't as much detail within the capital program going forward. But I don't think that that has been taken any further, has it? Is everybody happy to accept those minutes? Can we show our hands over, please? Diolch Arwel, diolch Pete. Thank you. Certainly a majority there. Right, to note the important parts of the meeting. Item 6, we've got the outturn report for the revenue, and followed by the capital. David, Councillor Thomas, would you like to give us a quick overview of the outturn for the last financial year? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, I'll give you a quick overview of, I'll just pick out the highlights in the reports, because it's a very lengthy report and detailed report. I'll presume that you've all read the report, so I think that there's an awful lot of information in it, but if there's any information that you feel is missing, or that's anything you want clarification around, I'm sure myself and officers and other portfolio holders will do our best to answer any questions you may have. But I think you'll find that a lot of the information is already in the report, so it might be just clarification that you require. Right, so this is the financial revenue outturn for 24-25 as at 31st of March 25. The final outturn position was a net underspend of £4.2 million after contributions to ring-fence reserves against a £252.5 million budget, excluding schools and housing revenue accounts. This falls to a variance of 0.9% of the working budget when the £2 million grant received from Welsh Government in March is taken into account. Section 3 of the report provides more information about the revenue outturn position, including the additional grant funding of £2 million received on the 24th of March to help support the impact of spending pressures in additional learning needs, homelessness, adult social care, children's services and highways. £2.9 million of the risk budget was distributed to schools improvement and learning, highways operations, adult social care, children's services and the school's dedicated budget as agreed in previous reports. Table 1 shows the outturn position by service area, and further detail along with commentary from heads of service is provided in Appendix A. With regard to cost reductions, during the year services delivered £8.9 million of agreed £12.9 million cost reductions, and that included those that were rolled forward, with a further £1.2 million achieved in year through temporary mitigation. With regard to reserves, the general fund reserve has increased to £15.7 million. If the specific reserve requests in Appendix D are agreed, then the general fund reserve would have a balance of £11.4 million, equating to 4.5% of the total net revenue budget for 24-25, excluding schools' dedicated budgets and the HRE. And that would be in line with the Council's policy of maintaining the general fund reserve at approximately 4% of their net revenue budget. Paragraph 5.6 in Table 4 sets out the position on schools reserves, showing that there is now a cumulative deficit of £1.1 million across all schools. A detailed paper on school balances and forecasts for future years was discussed by Cabinet on the 15th of July. The HRA reserves increased to £4.7 million. Transformation, Section 6 of the report summarises how transformation funding was utilised during 24-25, supplemented by grants and other funding to drive change across the council. £1.4 million of transformational redundancy costs were funded either through grant or transformation funding. Appendix D lists the environments and grants, and Section 7.4 sets out a number of environment requests for Cabinet approval, largely removing planned usage of reserves as a result of an improved financial position at the year end or adding to existing reserves. Paragraph 7.5 refers to the grants received and set out in more detail in Appendix E that are reported here to comply with financial regulations. With regard to the impact of capital, as set out in the capital outturn report, in total, the council spent £72.46 million on capital investments, and that includes the HRA, representing 95% of the revised budget of £75.92 million. Only £16.87 million of borrowing was actually required to finance schemes in the capital programme, with grants and other funding streams maximised to reduce the call on borrowing. The actual net cost of borrowing was £18.88 million, of which £13.55 million was chargeable to the general fund. This resulted in a £2.09 million overspend on the borrowing budget. This was reduced by the increased interest income of £0.91 million from holding any day-to-day cash surpluses in the deposit accounts. This reduced the overspend to £1.18 million. Now, there's a section there on financial risks, and you'd see the recommendations at the end of the report that will go to Cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Can I congratulate you and the finance team? We've got a net budget here of just over £1/3 billion, and to bring it in with almost spot on, to be honest. So it is important that we note that achievement in these difficult financial times. So thank you, Councillor Thomas and Jane and her team on doing so. Clearly, there's quite a bit of variation within budgets, but it is quite an achievement to ensure that the organisation of this size achieves a balanced budget. Right, members, any issues which you would wish to raise with Councillor Thomas or any other portfolio holder member that's in the team? And can I thank the portfolio holders who are here for joining the meeting. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you. Can I congratulate you, David, on a job well done, coming in budget. It's done a great job there. But I've been asked by a member of our group why the figures for 24-25, the outturn figures, not been given to the relative scrutiny committees this week. Can anyone answer that, please?
I'll ask officers if they can provide an answer for that.
Can I go to Councillor? Sorry, Jane Thomas. Scrutiny falls under your remit these days as director. Was it the timing of meetings, or Jane? You're on mute.
Button, apologies, Chair. So there is an item on health and care, I believe, later this month. Learning and skills, I believe, are looking at the school budgets on Friday. I think it's the other committee, ERC, it wasn't on the work programme scheduled for this month. And I think that's been due to the actual impact of papers coming through and the quantity that they were trying to get through. So that's my understanding. And I think there was an initial delay, wasn't there, right at the start, where we were expecting the outturn to come through quicker than it did. But that was down to Cabinet CLT being able to schedule the meetings when the relevant portfolio holders were all able to be present as well. So I think there have been a few delays, but in general, they will be seen by the committees.
Thank you, Jane. Jeremy.
I find it disappointing again that these things should go before the relevant scrutiny committees. And again, we're either cancelling meetings, moving meetings to the last minute and stuff continuously. Shows lack of professionalism, in my opinion. Things should be done far more on a more stringent basis, and people should be getting the results to the relevant committees on time. Thank you.
I'm sure Cabinet members will note that point. Any other questions on this paper? Important area of this paper is the appendices, where you can see the delivery, the record of delivery of savings within each individual service area. Any questions on? Please ask questions on those areas as well, since we've had a large number of heads of service with it here present at the meeting as well. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just seeking some clarifications really on the under 2.4. It's got not 2.4, 2.2, sorry. It mentions that there are challenges ahead currently. So I think we've done really well to get to the position that David and the finance team have achieved is really credible, particularly with the challenges of high inflation and pay awards. It mentions within that paragraph that there has been mitigations used, and I see one of them is the use of the risk budget. What other mitigations have been then considered? And then going forward, what are we anticipating in relation to the strength of that risk budget being utilised to ensure that we are controlling the medium-term financial position?
David, I guess this is for you.
I'm not 100% certain, Chris, what the question is, but the risk budget, it carries through. We've got it every year, £3 million. And obviously, if necessary, that'll be used to mitigate any potential overspends arising within different services. There are a lot of risks held at, a lot of pressures held at risk, and that happens every year, and that tends to be more than the risk budget itself. But in the first instance, we would use the risk budget to try and mitigate any overspends in any particular service. Is that what you were looking for?
It was just to seeing of how are we anticipating those challenges and what are we using as strategies to be able to do so.
Well, yeah.
The other aspect is that if you look at some of the savings table, there are, I think it was in one of the tables, there's 2.7 million that certain services haven't achieved as their savings targets. This seems to that our position could have been greater if those savings targets had been achieved, and how much of that is then rolled on into the next financial year, and that just increasing the pressures going forward, and it's how we're dealing with that.
Yes, the savings delivery was disappointing this year compared to previous years. We'd actually been making inroads into the savings that are identified at budget setting time, but we did take a step backwards. There were many reasons for that. For example, increased cost of the children's placements, despite some successes in reducing the number of children looked after, and works ongoing to achieve a step down in provision and placing children closer to home. Interest rates obviously has been a major challenge, and there was an overspend in borrowing costs. Inflation is an ongoing challenge. We do build a measure into the budget for inflation going forward, but we also hold a pay reserve because on a number of occasions, pay settlements do exceed the actual what we build in there for increases in pay awards. So there are a number of elements built into the budget itself that will go towards mitigation, but there's a lot of uncertainty as well because there's incredible amount of volatility at the moment around key performance indicators as far as the economy is concerned, and that does feed through to any budget setting process, particularly when you're trying to plan ahead. And I say interest rates, inflation, just two key indicators there that are very, very difficult to plan accurately.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The savings delivery is a really important element of the budget. Table 2 shows that there's 3 areas, well, actually 4 areas, but the workforce and OT is quite a relatively small budget, so the impact is not that great. It's only 5k was delivered of the total saving of 13. But in schools and improvement and learning, planning and regulation, and especially children's service, that has quite a big impact on the £2.7 million and unachieved savings. I can see Councillor Sian Cox is in the meeting, and other portfolio holders. Would you like to comment on those particular 3 areas of children's services, highways, and school improvements? And can you just refer us to the relevant pages of the appendix as I scroll down very quickly to find those savings and the
Chair.
reasoning behind it? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Sian is
Oh,
in charge of adult
yes,
services.
My apologies.
Sorry.
Thank you, Sandra. Maybe you could.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go ahead
yes,
now?
please. That'd be brilliant. Thank you, Sandra.
Okay. Thank you very much for the questions. Yes, it is concerning. Nobody's happy with having, being out of budget, and I can assure you that all our staff are working extremely hard and counting every penny to make sure and try to match and have, bridge the gap and bring our finances up to speed. The unachieved savings of 2.903 million was in 24-25, and out of that, 1.82 million was rolled onwards from 23-24. And out of all of the accumulation of all of that, 2.306 million were achieved. That's 57.87% of the budget. The outstanding amount then is 1.679 million, which is rolled forward for 25-26. As Councillor David has already said, placement costs have really increased from 7.5 million to 9.8 million, of an increase of 2.6 million within the year. That's just 1 year. Placement costs have really risen to exorbitant prices. And as I said, this is due to the high cost placements. When there is a national shortage of residential provision, costs increased as providers capitalised on the position of need. This is why we are trying our best and our utmost to bring children back home in Powys. We did not meet our 16+ provision target due to a delay in the Brecon Springboard properties not being available until after April the 1st, 2025. We've had a delay in the SGO policy being agreed over the past 6 months, which would have converted more foster carers to a different legal status and reduced our costs.
That's sorry, Sandra. Can you? That's a special guardianship order, isn't it?
Yes. Apologies for abbreviation. Yes, I will in future try and those in full. Sorry.
Diolch,
yes.
Sandra.
Diolch yn fawr. And the grant funding, whilst was achieved in year, was not able to be used as a permanent savings from the budget. We have a number of mitigations, and I'll go through them very briefly now for you. The spend freeze across all services areas unless necessary. All invoices, no matter how big or small, are signed off by our head of service. And I want to thank our head of service, because I can assure you our head of service does work extremely hard with all the teams and goes through everything with their managers. Our head of service signs off all placements for all children. There's a freeze of all vacancy positions unless necessary. And the agency social workers costs decreased from 9,594 per day to 3,453 per day at the end of the year, a 6k a day difference. So there's a huge improvement there. And this year, areas of working for 25, and I can assure you that some of these are in place at the moment. Closer to home strategy and returning children home where it is safe to do so. Preventing children from becoming looked after in the first place. Increasing the number of SGOs, and as we've already know, I'm really sorry. These abbreviations always catch me out, and I write them down. The special guardianship order. There is a huge amount of abbreviations in both education and social services. Reduce our agency social worker numbers, and I'm hoping that everybody realises we had at one time 52 agency workers. We are now under 10 agency workers. So that's a huge improvement. And many of the agency workers have asked to come and be part of Powys. So that's fantastic. Increasing our grow our own social workers. We've got 8 qualifying in the autumn. Again, a huge achievement, a big turnaround. Maximising the use of grant funding where appropriate. Building our own residential homes. That's a plan of ours for the long-term future. Build our own 16+ provision. Increased our early help offer in South Powys. Strengthening our front door services. And if I may, I'll go through some of the positives that we've achieved and through teamwork, and I can assure you our teams do work together. Sustainable and stable workforce, that's a huge turnaround in social services as a whole. Low sickness rates and improved well-being. That's self-explanatory. If there's less sickness rates within, there's less pressure on other members of the teams. Good performance reports month on month. Positive inspections from the JIGPA, fostering and adoption services. Positive assurance report from our independent consultant, and numbers of children who are looked after are reducing. There are risks, we've always got risks, and the risks are the continuing rising costs of residential placements. As I said, there's a national shortage. We are doing our utmost to bring our children back in Powys. There will always be children who are at risk of harm and in need, who will need support from the service and who could become looked after at any given time. If any amount of children come in today, tomorrow, we have no budget for those children, but I can assure you, we open our arms, we welcome them, and we will support them. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch iawn, Sandra, for that detailed report. I don't want the panel to go too much into the detail. I'm sure you will. That's the work of the Health and Care Scrutiny Committee. Can I bring Corina in? Is this about the Children's Services, Corina?
Yes, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to mention
please.
about the mothballing of the children's residential scheme that Sandra's touched on. I know it's not that much money in the large scheme of things, but it seems in a way, a false economy. Would you agree with me? Do you have plans in the long term? Thank you very much.
May I, Councillor Alec?
Please, Sandra.
Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr, Councillor Corina, for the question. Yes, I agree with you. Our staff have discussed this long and hard. It's something that none of us agreed to doing. It was a very difficult decision, but we really needed the correct staff to house those youngsters when they were coming in. We didn't have that resource available to us at the time, and looking at and also CIW put in some restrictions on houses or improved services, and we have to meet those needs and those costs as well. And unfortunately at that time we didn't have the finances to do it, so we had to do the next best thing. And I can assure you there are plans for improving the services and moving forward. We are desperate to utilise those houses, and we have plans in place ready to utilise them. I don't know, I can see Sharon's hand is up. I'm sure she will have something to elaborate on of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, please add comment to what portfolio holders said on that. Can I also thank you for all the work you've done as well on children's services over the last 12 months.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to add, really good question about the mothballing on one of our residential homes. It's absolutely false economy, as you've said, when you've got rising cost of placements on one hand, and then we've got properties that we've mothballed on the other hand. Unfortunately, with our overspend position, we need to really navigate the budget really carefully in terms of what we do as our next steps. But for this year, the key priority is reopening 2 of our closed residential homes. One of the challenges in that is recruiting appropriate staff, as Councillor Davies kind of alluded to. It's really important that we do get a skilled workforce that enable us to kind of maximise moving children back into those homes, but actually delivering really safe, positive outcomes for them. So it's something that we need to kind of work on in terms of recruitment, building knowledge, experience of the workforce to enable to deliver the best possible outcomes for those children. So it can be a slow process. We have been fortunate in securing some Welsh Government grant money as revenue cost, which is really, really positive. That's information has just come through in the last 3 weeks. So our prioritisation is definitely reopening our residential homes that we haven't been able to open over recent years. Coupled with that, you'll be aware as a council, you endorsed our fostering framework last year, and that is really about trying to nurture and gain knowledge and experience for our foster carers and recruit and retain more foster carers. So in the event that a child does need to become looked after, that we've got more opportunity, more flexibility around different arrangements to meet the different needs of those children. So that is as equally as important as opening the residential homes. And coupled with that, from an intervention and prevention agenda, we very much want to prevent children becoming looked after in the first place. So again, we're going to use some of the Welsh Government grant money to look at our edge of care model. And what that means is when children are on the verge of possibly becoming looked after because a family's in crisis, what we want to do is send a team of staff into that home, support that family to be the best that they can be, and to prevent that child needing to be looked after in the first place. So it's almost you're looking at things through a whole kind of system approach. And as well as that, we are really wanting to strengthen our early help offer. And what that means is we're looking at the south of the county, developing more opportunities for family centres. So right at the earliest possible situation, what we want to do is engage with children and families at that earliest time so that we can prevent them going into crisis in the first place, maybe having to look at that child having to be looked after at some point in the future. So it's a whole kind of system approach within the service around intervention, prevention, and then obviously navigating where there are children that are placed in high cost residential provision. It's looking at returning those children home, stepping them back down, maybe into foster care, maybe back home. So you've got a very fluid movement around the whole service in terms of, yes, looking at the cost of that, but also looking at practice, looking at what we're doing in terms of our delivery model so that we can actually keep children as close to home as is possible, but within that whole kind of financial envelope of delivering a safe service within that financial envelope.
Thanks very much. Very interesting. Thanks.
Thanks both. I don't know if anybody else has got a question on children's services, but on page 30, you've got those costs or savings that have been rolled forward. Can I seek your assurance that they're almost guaranteed to be achieved this year? And were any of those savings rolled forward from the previous financial year as well?
Yes, Chair. So some of those savings were rolled over from a previous year and they've just accumulated. So each year, although we're making savings, we've still got the legacy of trying to reduce that pot of the unachieved savings. So this year, we've already identified 5 or 6 children that are actually stepping down from high cost residential placements back home. And I'd like to assure you that I'm confident that we can deliver the unachieved savings and reduce that pot right down to zero, or as close to zero as we possibly can do.
Okay. That's good news, because if their savings are being rolled forward from year to year, you have to draw a line somewhere, and in the FRM, those savings need to be placed in future years rather than in the next financial year when you're talking about building a budget. So you're confident that all those savings rolled forward this time will be achieved, along with all the new savings which inevitably come as well.
I mean, the one thing with children's services, you never quite know what's going to happen in terms of the day, in terms of today, tomorrow, next week. But in terms of assuring you today, I'm confident that we can deliver the savings that are unachieved savings and the projected savings for this year through all what I said in terms of that intervention and prevention agenda and reopening our own residential homes, building our fostering framework. All those are really key in terms of that impact, in terms of delivering that sort of safe service, but reducing that high cost provision where we would like to return children back to Powys and back home wherever it's safe to do so.
Okay, Josh, Sharon, I'm sure you'll keep the relevant scrutiny committee informed, and the cabinet, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's any problems with that, Councillor Pugh.
Pete is in, has got his hand up for me, Pete Roberts.
Oh, I assume Pete was going to come in on the education one first.
Okay.
But
Well, for me, my question would be: do you think that we spend too much time looking at savings, and we need to spend more time looking at just staying within our budget? And if savings come along, they come along, because I've been on the council, 8 years now, and I think every year we're going to do these savings, and every year, no disrespect, we end up, because of unforeseen and different things, coming in over budget. And I think we've wasted an awful lot of time when putting down for savings that were not achievable. And would we be better off spending our time staying within budget instead of looking for savings which don't end up getting delivered? Thank you.
It's a cross-council question, really. Councillor Thomas, would you like to pick up on that?
Yeah, it's a fair comment, but at the end of the day, there's one base budget, and then we get the settlement, which we add to that, and then we've got to balance that out against the pressures that develop within services, and that creates a budget gap. So obviously, in addressing that budget gap, services can go as far as they possibly can, and we've got some mitigation built into the budget anyway. But inevitably, there's going to have to be some savings within service areas, and that's why we asked them to deliver savings. If we went for it just as a budget as a whole, and we had to cover the whole gap without actually including any savings, there's a high probability that we might end up actually increasing council tax more than what is necessary. So I think it's fair to build a challenge in for services with regard to savings delivery.
Can I come back?
I think the big question, Councillor Jeremy, it's whether the savings are deliverable or not, and I think that's what we were discussing earlier on. And they did accept it was disappointing this year, but I've asked Cabinet when we actually look at that potential savings for the coming financial year, when we come to set the next budget, that we ensure that the savings that are put forward are deliverable. Can I just,
what would be nice if we could have an understanding the cost of putting together all these savings which end up being undelivered. I don't mean to, this is not meant to be disrespectful. Everything has a cost and people are earning high wages. So the cost of if that money was put into the service, it might keep the service within budget rather than every year trying to achieve a saving. And if we do get a saving by working hard within budget, then so be it. But turning round and I think we spend a huge amounts of money on savings, and in certain areas we know we're not going to reach that. And I just think sometimes we would be better off delivering the service, getting the service settled, delivering it within budget. Once we get a stable and we get within budget, then start to look at delivering savings.
I was thinking that might be just a statement, but I can see Jane Thomas's hand's gone up. So perhaps Jane, you can respond.
Yeah, if I may, I think what's important to note though is that over the last decade or more, we've delivered over £100 million worth of savings. So that base budget hasn't stayed consistent because we've had to deliver savings to keep within it. So I think it's very important then when you have to make those changes to service delivery, that we're able to fully understand that ahead of setting the budget and then be able to monitor it through the year. So although we haven't delivered 100% of those savings, without that savings delivery, we would not be in the position that we are now, and we would be way over the level of funding that we actually receive from Welsh Government and through council tax. So it is a huge part of keeping us within the budget that we set each year.
So is there any chance I get a copy of what them savings are and a copy of what overspends we've had for the last 5 years, so then I can really understand it better? Thank you.
Can I just say, Councillor Jeremy, Councillor Pugh, there is a list of the undelivered savings within the report pack for this year, for 24-25, at Appendix D.
Yeah.
And it's got some of the reasons there why these savings weren't delivered. So.
But to truly understand something, you can't just deal in piecemeal 1 year at a time. You need to look at something over a period of time to understand how the outturn has really come. And what I'm asking is if I could have an understanding of what the savings were for the 100 million over the last so many years and what the overspends were for the last so many years, and then I'd have a better understanding of the business model that we're doing. It's not about anything else, it's to improve my knowledge, and I think it'd help everybody else. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose in the simplest terms, if we hadn't delivered that £100 million plus savings over those years, you'd have been looking at an overspend against the budget of a similar amount, or potentially a similar increase in council tax.
Could I say Mohammed come in and got rid of 3 or 4 middle management officers, and all we did was pay everybody off and move the next officer below up. So the savings were made, but they weren't made because all we did was pay redundancy to people and move the next level up. So I like to see our savings really made. So I could say it was made this year, but every decision has a knock-on effect. And I like to follow them through over a period to truly understand, did them savings really deliver over that period of time? And did it come through? And if it did, it's fantastic. But I like to understand the business model. And if we had some underspends and overspends, to understand where they come from. And then just sit back and look at the impact then of that certain area. Was that area we're delivering still successful? If it was, that is fantastic. If it wasn't, what did we learn from that? And that's all I'm trying to say. So just to improve my understanding of it. Thank you.
So what you're asking for is a breakdown of the savings that were delivered over the past 4 or 5 years, yeah?
Yeah, and if we could see what other ones we failed on as well, please.
Yeah, okay, we'll look at that. Yeah.
Yes, you have those reports already. It's about drawing them together, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Councillor Thomas. But it has to be said, the overall net expenditure during that same period where £100 million has been saved has gone up by almost £100 million as well, because of inflation and increased demand. So the net expenditure of the council as a business is now at 340 million compared to it was about £100 million less when I became a councillor. So there's been significant changes in budgets across the council over that period of time. Any other questions on children's services before I move on to education? Councillor Roberts, I can see his hands up. No other hands. Right, before you come in, Councillor Roberts, I know we got scrutiny, education scrutiny on Thursday, and the reports have been published. I found the table contained in that are around school deficits far more informative than the schools reserves movements table 4 within this report. What you see there are the net effects within each area rather than the size of the deficits set against the size of the surpluses within the different sectors. So it would have been really good to have that table in this report so we can understand the potential risk that it's over £7 million, I think, wasn't it? The cumulative deficits across all the schools. But just something to note. But Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I think you'll be aware that at scrutiny on Friday, part of it is being taken in confidential session. I think you'll find that's the bit that relates to individual school finances.
Oh yeah, no, I was talking about the overall level of deficits within each sector. On table 4, you see the total deficit there of £2 million. Well, if you look at all the schools that are in deficit and add those deficits together, the total is in excess of £7 million. These have been netted off by the surpluses. And it's at £7 million that really does form a risk to the council. If that school was to close, if all those schools were to close, all that deficit would fall onto the general reserve, which would take out half the general reserve. That's what I'm angling at. So sorry.
I'm with you now, Chair, and that's something obviously we'll explore in a lot more detail on Friday, as it's information that's in front of that particular scrutiny committee. But I agree with you that some of the historic deficits that have built up, particularly in the secondary sector, is an area that now that we are reaching the point of stabilising a lot of budgets to in-year balance budgets, is an area we'll need to move forward with. And I know officers are working with some schools where there are specific reasons for those deficits to address them. But I'm aware of confidentiality, and I'm going to be, if you will indulge me until Friday, I'm going to keep a little bit silent on that today.
Yes, just to make it clear, the individual school deficits are public knowledge. It is in the public sector of those reports on Friday. Thank you.
Yeah, the bit I'm referring to is some of the reasons behind those deficits.
Yeah, okay.
In respect of last year's budget, there are two areas where efficiency savings weren't met. The first one is in relation to the reorganisation of the pupil referral units. This was identified by scrutiny as being quite a high risk saving, but with the relatively small budget, I took the officer's advice that it was one that was worth moving forward with. After the budget was put in place, there was an ESTIM review of the pupil referral units, and following that and following advice about a preferred different way forward from officers that were now in post, that item was written out and was dealt with in the either Q1 or Q2 report in some detail in respect to the environments that would cover the costs there. What you will notice in the relevant table is that there has been mitigation put in place, and I'd commend officers for the work that they did to identify in-year mitigation of that particular saving. That will now in part be carried forward into the ALM review that is being undertaken at the moment, with a view to savings being taken forward within this financial year. And I'm looking forward to bringing some of that information to scrutiny probably in the autumn as to how that will move forward. The second area of savings in respect to the management fee with Freedom Leisure. This required a significant amount of additional work from officers to identify the actual usage of swimming pools and other leisure services by schools, so that we could identify the appropriate levels of usage, and then enter into negotiations with Freedom Leisure as to how that can be balanced out. Obviously, that led to delays into this academic year, and as a result, not all of the savings there were made. So that outlines the two particular big headline figures as to why we have a quite significant gap in the savings target this year compared to the previous year, where the department met almost all of their savings.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any questions to Councillor Roberts? No. It's very tempting to explore this more, but I know the scrutiny on Thursday, and it's an annual issue that we seem to go around in circles on numerous occasions, really. Yes, the commentary on page 19 for your area is very light, really, but can I thank you for your explanation? It's hard not to tread on toes of the scrutiny areas. Members, any questions to Councillor Roberts? I know we will have scrutiny will have a greater look at this on Friday. No? Oh, Karina, thank you, Karina.
Probably a bit of a naive question. It's going to Appendix D, and just asking for the £1 million for the school improvement required because of the ESTIN report. I just wondered what sort of shape that might take. Thank you.
Can you give me a page number, please, Karina? Appendix D. Appendix
the
D
very
stats on.
last but one page in this part of the report, but I can't give you a number because I'm looking at the individual item PDF.
Oh, Appendix D is on page around 41, isn't
Page
it?
40, Chair.
Page 40. Thank you. Yes, there's £1 million there.
This is the school improvement contingency funding in relation to delivering some of the changes that we need with Estin. The exact breakdown of that is something that is still being worked through with officers, but it's there as a contingency to be drawn down at need when required. I think I saw Amwyn come in with me earlier. I don't know if Dr. Richard is here. I know he's been in and out of Estin meetings. Dr. Richard is here. Would you want to expand on that at all at this point?
Sorry. Can you explain Appendix D, Councillor Thomas? This is service underspends reserve requests. Can you explain exactly how that forms part of the budget? Is this underspends within 24-25?
Yes, the overall underspend against the budget. Well, the 4.3 million, I think it comes to.
Okay.
We've moved into the general fund, which takes it up to 15 point whatever million pound. We propose to use the £4 million plus to cover pressures that are developing in future years, which will take that general fund reserve back down to where it should be at about 4%.
Okay, what is the total commitment on those in Appendix D, roughly? Does it
4.3 million?
4.3, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all committed. In a way, this is looking at this current financial year to some degree, rather than looking at. I know it's a surplus from the previous financial year, but so to keep this area fairly brief, Dr. Richard. Apologies. Were you going to come in and give
thank you very much,
commentary on that?
I can just add a little bit of further detail around that. So, that sum is for two things. First of all, it's to respond to some of the recommendations which are coming out of the Accelerated Improvement Board. So, quick pieces of work which need to draw on some immediate reserves so we can act with pace to address areas which that board is identifying. And then secondly, it's to bring targeted intervention and support into schools that need it most. So we think there of our schools which are in a statutory Estin category. And an example of what that support could look like, it could be supporting the school financially to secure additional leadership capacity in the form of a secondment, creating opportunities for senior leaders to visit other schools in other parts of the country to see different sorts of practice, bringing in additional professional learning into schools. So it's a fund to respond directly to the need of individual schools in a really flexible and bespoke way. And we've seen that work when we've worked with Gwynyfed in that sort of fashion, and we are making good progress working with Brecon when we have that sort of flexibility as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Richard. I know your service faces huge challenges following the Estin report. Can I thank you for your work and your senior officers within your team? I know there's going to be a little bit of flux within your team. Somebody else's gain and our loss. But can I thank you for the work you're doing there? And I'm sure we'll see you again on Friday in the education scrutiny meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on education? No. Just at this point, I have mentioned it in another scrutiny committee when we were looking at the risks contained for the council, financial risks, and I've had a quick discussion with the chair of Learning and Skills about setting up a working group to look at the sustainability of our education system. We've got to make sure that the almost £100 million we are spending on schools delegated is really delivering for our young people and what education system, as in numbers of schools, how we can deliver all the options. So I was hoping to set up a working group from members of the finance panel and the education, learning and skills scrutiny committee. So I'd be looking for a couple of names from each of the groups to form that working group. But we can discuss that at the end of the meeting, because there's huge challenges in delivering as a sustainable system across the whole of Powys with the current number of schools we have on the books. So thank you, Councillor Peat. Unless there's any other questions for Councillor Roberts.
Hey, Chair, if I could just respond to that, I would very much welcome that. There are a lot of challenges within the system, value for money for dual stream versus Welsh medium schools, for example. And as you say, the distribution of our entire schools estate. So if scrutiny are prepared to take that on as an additional work programme alongside the work I'm doing at a more operational level on catchment reviews, that would be a very helpful and informative piece of work.
Yeah, I do want it to be at a fairly high level, not going too much into individual schools. But it's about, the question is, are we spreading our resources too thinly across the school system? Councillor Arrow.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a comment on that, really, because obviously, as a previous portfolio for education, is, yeah, we're all aware that there is probably too many schools in the county, and yeah, we need to streamline the system. But as soon as we start process to streamline the system, every Tom, Dick, and Harry puts an objection in. So I'm sorry, Chair, it's a difficult one, but I think it's high time that we all realise that there is too many schools in the country. We work together as a council and get a few of these schools. Certainly the smaller schools. I'm not sort of picking on you, Aled. I know precinct that Brooklyn has recently closed, but yeah, we're all aware of the issues. But it is a difficult process to go through. But I'll just leave it on that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to confine it to primary schools only. I'm not sure if I'm Tom, Dick, or Harry, but
well.
but thank you. We can discuss that at another time. So diolch Arwel for the support of that. The other area that didn't deliver savings was highways. Is Councillor Charlton in the meeting? I can't, on my screen, I can't see, but I can see John Forsey.
Yes, I am in the meeting, Chair.
Great. That's great, Councillor Jackie. Would you like to comment on the non-delivery of savings within your area?
She's on mute, Chair.
I can't, on my screen, I can't see Councillor Jackie.
Okay.
Well, there you are, Jackie.
I will, as John is in the meeting, I'll hand you over to John to explain the undelivered savings. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Jackie. Yeah, there's a bit of a mix. There was some savings we've got which were in the FR, which have been unachieved, to things like the car park review. We've just been speaking about winter maintenance this morning in scrutiny. So there's some of those captured, which required a bit more detailed work to get through the process. And I think it's fair to say they've taken longer than we anticipated. Some of the unachieved savings have been rolled over from previous years. I'm more confident now that we've got decisions around car parking reviews. We're going through the process around winter maintenance. And then we've got the extra capital money coming in through the LGBI initiative, which all helps towards those pressures. So in general, yeah, they've been a long time coming, but there is a plan to deal with them now for this year. Now that we've got the relevant governance decisions in either made or in the process of being made.
So in I was trying to look at Appendix C, where those cost reductions are rolled forward. Not all those, are they all rolled forward, all the cost reductions? Because there's half a dozen of them here. Or have some been written out at the budget setting stage?
Yes, there was 323,000, I believe, written out. Somebody correct me if I got that incorrect, please. But so yeah, there's, as I discussed, there's the winter maintenance. We had delayed funding with the levelling up funding last year. That's now been we've now been awarded that funding. And then we've got contractual issues around the use of the contractors cutting grass, going through the process around the bulk waste in the north of the county, and introducing the car parking badges. Those are the big ticket items that we've now got clarity on, and which is where we'll be going. I've got more assurance that we'll be achieving them this year.
Okay, thank you, John. That was going to be my question to Councillor Jackie, about the assurance that a number of these have been dragging on for a while, but that assurance about delivery. And it's probably be more realistic at the budget setting process about which year those things have been delivered. It's unfortunate to see things rolling over from one year to the next. Councillor Pete Lewington.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've just seen on sort of page 20, there's a line in there about aborted capital projects, and I think that's a loss of about £604,000. I just wonder if there could be a bit more explanation around what they were and why they were abandoned.
This is Appendix A.
Yeah.
Page 20 in my pack, Chair.
Just scrolling up to that now. This it reads worse than it is. I think it's where we've done some preparatory works, for example, and then things for whatever reason have come to a halt, whether there's lack of grant to continue the scheme, or whether we've done some preparatory work and now waiting for planning permission, for example. There's a whole load of background detail to that, but it just gives us sort of a broad overview where we are and where we've not been able to progress capital schemes as quickly as we'd like.
Pete.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, that just seems a lot of money, and I guess a long way into projects, to then suddenly write off. So I guess I was trying to say, didn't we know at the time we did the project there might be this risk?
Is it, John, or is that abandoned for the time being, or forever, or and sorry, I can see James Chappell. James, capital is your area. Maybe you'd like to comment.
Yeah, good afternoon, members. This is the risk with all capital schemes. When you start them, there is always uncertainty, and we take the view at that point in time to capitalise the costs based on our best belief that those schemes will carry on and come to fruition in the end. All sorts of things can happen, policy changes, as John has said, and it involves decisions, grant funding, all sorts of things that take place that mean that the costs that, these costs that we've incurred to get us to a certain point in time, the projects are not going to complete. So we have to write those costs out through the revenue budget. We have no other option but to do that if we do not believe those schemes are going to complete, and that's what it is with these few schemes we've picked up this year.
Is this a cleansing exercise that, or does all this apply to the last financial year?
It's something we check every year. It just happens that these projects haven't progressed substantially in the last few years, so it's come to a point where there was no way forward at this point in time, so they had to be written off. Otherwise, we'd have risks of auditors going through our accounts and going, why are these not turned into assets at this point in time? So it's just proper management of our capital, really.
Okay, I would the committee like to see a breakdown of that, and also copy in the economy and the other scrutiny committee, just to understand how far back some of these due dates or
Yeah. Yeah, yes, please, Chair. Yeah, to get a flavour for what they are as well, actually.
Councillor Charlton, is that something you could provide us with?
Sorry, I didn't hear all that, Councillor Allard.
The breakdown of I can't see the exact number now.
Yeah, I
604.
can see
Okay.
it's about the abortive costs. So
Yeah.
what is it exactly you wanted a breakdown of?
Just understanding the different projects that is covered by this 604K, and when were those projects initiated, and possibly a reason why they were aborted or uncompleted, and because it is a fantastic sum of money. It's equivalent of a closing 10 primary schools equivalent in a 12-month period. But
yeah, I'm sure that can be arranged. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Pete. Any questions? Other questions for Pete?
Yeah, sorry, thanks, Chair. The only other one, I don't see any mention in there anywhere of how well we did on car parking, whether we overachieved or underachieved over the year.
I just quickly scrolling through the finance report, and I saw there is a number in there somewhere. Sorry, bear with me.
Or maybe you can.
Sorry, yeah, can you just bear with me?
We'll come back if you can't find it today. Don't worry, John. If you can send it to Kath, and she'll share it with the committee along with that explanation around the 604K.
I found it. Sorry, it's typical. £17,000 improvement in off-street car parking income. So against the target.
That was off-street parking income.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Pete.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks, Chair. If that's the figure, so that's the figure. Thank you.
What sort of percentage is that? It's quite a small percentage, is it, of the total revenue?
Yes, million, just over under £2 million around there.
Yeah, so relatively small. Just a quick question, really. I know it's not relating directly to 24-25, but looking at their FRM following last Friday's council meeting, quite a bit of additional pressure has been put on the on the service with the extended bus routes. When savings weren't achieved and there's an overspend within the area, I wish this had come to financial panel so we could have discussed it a little bit wider. But how do you expect that to be achieved, and also clawing back the I think it's £750,000 over expenditure in 24-25? It's possibly a question for Councillor Jackie more than anybody. It does put significant additional pressures, because I assume you will want to replenish the reserves you're raiding to pay for this year's as well.
Yes, we will certainly want to do that, Councillor Allard. I can't tell you what they will be at the moment, but it is our obviously we will be keeping a very close eye on that, and I've no doubt that others will be keeping a close eye on it as well. I don't think I'm in a position to tell you where we're going to claw that back from, but I'm sure if you want those figures, if you want some explanation, we can provide that for you. It's not something we can do quite off the cuff with a question that we weren't prepared for.
Okay. Okay, and I assume you'll report back to the relevant scrutiny committee as well. Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackie. Any other questions for Councillor Jackie? No. Can I thank Matt and his team, John especially, a huge amount of work you've done in retendering the bus services, and I know it goes on with the school transport at the moment as well. So thank you for all the work you've done over the last 12 months as well. Much appreciated. And if there's any spare millions, you know where all the bottles are. But thanks both. Thank you much indeed. Any other questions? We really do need to move on. Any other questions on the outturn for 23-24 on the revenue report before we move on to the capital report? No? Great. David, would you like to give us Councillor Thomas, would you like to give us a quick introduction to the revenue report? Capital report, please.
Yes, Chair. So this is the capital outturn 24-25 as of 31st of March 2025. Following the successful award of additional grants and the reprofiling of budgets between financial years, the revised programme for 24-25 is budgeted at £75.92 million. At the end of the financial year, actual spend totals £72.46 million, which represented 95% of the total budget. 23% or £16.87 million of the capital expenditure is budgeted to be financed by borrowing. The interest cost for this is charged to the revenue account. Section 3 of the report details the grants that have been received and included in the capital programme since the last report. Section 5 sets out the two environments for approval. A total of £1.86 million of capital receipts have been received during the year, and services have provided updates in Appendix A on their individual capital schemes. And that concludes my introduction to the report, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. I'm not sure if I didn't ask last time, but does James want to make comment on this? James Chappell, really? No? Yeah. Hello, James. Would you like to add further to Councillor Thomas's introduction?
Anything further to add? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Just a quick one from me. The original budget, total budget, was 65 or 102, depends if you want to include the housing revenue grant account. But there's huge difference between the original and the actuals. Of course, the performance on the actuals was quite good, but why this sudden change between the original budget and the revised budget?
I think you'll find most of that is down to reprofiling of the projects and additional grants received from Welsh Government, Chair.
And when you say reprofiling, or James?
So one of the biggest effect, as you can see there in economy and climate, was the Montgomery Canal scheme, which was extended for a year. So that that pushed quite a bit on. The unallocated for some of the pipeline schemes that we hold in there until they reach their business case stage, and some of the housing revenue account is the new build schemes. So there's still issues with phosphates and things like that, locating sites and getting planning and things like that. So they're all not delaying things, but it's moving as fast as it can. But other external factors are slowing us down. So we're reprofiling as swiftly as we can, so we got a more accurate picture as we go through the year, rather than a big variance at the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's partly my point I was driving at. Really, in the past, we've seen a big shift or rolling forward schemes at the end of the year rather than when they become apparent. Is there any incentive, Councillor Thomas, to push the capital programs forward to reduce the cost of borrowing and the impact on the revenue? We heard that it only involved borrowing, was it £19 million additional money to cover the capital program this year? Oh, when I say this year, I'm talking about 24-25 rather than the original estimate. Does that play a part
No,
in
no,
your
no.
thinking?
No, it's not a deliberate tactic, if that's what you're trying to suggest, Chair. The capital financing requirement, the cost is significantly high at the moment. I think it's about £15 million, forecast to go up as high as £18 million. And you know, the revenue budget itself is under enormous pressure as it stands. But the Capital Oversight Board are monitoring the situation with capital spend, and what we can afford, you know, we will deliver. And unfortunately, because of the type of delays that James has spoken about, etc., some of those have to be reprofiled into future years. But it's not something we set out to do deliberately, to try and reduce our borrowing so that it doesn't impact the revenue budget. And indeed, you know, we've been fortunate over previous years where we've been using our cash surpluses to keep our borrowing costs as low as possible. But that's not going to continue because it's getting more and more difficult.
Yes, yeah, internal borrowing, as it's referred to, just to rather than having investments. I'm glad Councillor Roberts has put his hand up, because this probably impacts school transformation. We can all think of schemes that local members are very keen that go ahead, and they seem to be pushed further and further into the long grass. Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I think it's worth highlighting some of the delays within the programme this year. Proposals, for example, at Sennybridge were delayed because of the costs that were coming in, so there needed to be additional work there. We've had delays in planning process at Bryn-Clawlwch, although I can say that we're now expecting to be cutting turf there in the autumn term. And then we've had a delay at Golygapanavan, and linked with that, Calon-y-Dderwin, as we've had officers tasked to look at a more modular approach and creating a common design for schools of a particular size. So you've seen that element of slippage coming through, but the expectation, particularly with the common design, is that that will enable us to move forward the design side of projects a lot more effectively, and also the planning side, because a lot of the issues that are likely to crop up within planning in respect of design elements will be known, and we will be able to articulate those in the application stage.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. We've been on this common design place before. A lot of the schools, were 4 or 5 schools in the Gwerynhafed sort of catchment, are all the similar sort of design. Well, maybe this is not the place for this now, because we're not education scrutiny, but these things do seem to come around now and again. Councillor Elwyn.
Well, diolch, Cadeirydd. I was listening to Councillor Pete's comments there. Of course, I was very interesting that he omitted one big capital project that seems to be an agenda and has been for many years, called Hyddgen. And obviously will have an impact on the capital expenditure budget. Where are we on that?
I saw your hand come up, Councillor Elwyn, so I thought I would let you have a full question rather than comment on it. Bro Hyddgen is in a cost reappraisal stage at the moment, to determine the most cost-effective way of moving it forward, whilst other parts of the process are going forward. I haven't spoken to officers particularly about Bro Hyddgen for a few weeks, so if Marianne or Dr. Richard are in a position to give you the absolute latest update, I'm sure they would be more than happy to contribute.
I think Marianne's not in the meeting today, but Dr. Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I could just have a minute, I'll just get an update so it's live off the transformation team and come back to you in a split second.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Richard. There's issues around all these capital projects, and I want to pick that up in that working group as well, that relationship in the transformation process between capital and revenue and delivery of high standards within our schools. There's a relationship there that we need to understand, I think, and it's more that we, pre and post 16. primary sector as well. So that's good. If Richard can come back, I'm sure he'll respond to Kath, and Kath can inform members. Any other questions on the capital programme? Members, no? Everybody's quiet. I did notice there was quite a big slip in economy and climate. Oh no, apologies, that was from the original budget to the revised budget. My apologies. So we've had the explanation on those issues. Any other questions before we move to the next item on the agenda? No? Thank you, committee. And that's all. Can I thank all members of the senior leadership team and all heads of services for their work over the 24-25 year. I know the challenging issues, and it's never easy to change the services against possible wishes, but I know you do it with the best intentions. So thank you so much for all your hard work during that financial year. And it doesn't stop. It continues year on year. So thank you. Councillor James Gibson-Watt, did you have a quick comment to make? Your hand's gone up and down, but as you were leader for most of that 12 months.
Indeed, Chair. And my apologies. I did put my hand up and then nothing happened. And then suddenly it went up and I thought, oh, well, it's too late now. You've moved on. So I just wanted to make the point. I mean, yes, you're right. I was leader for the last previous 3 years. And I have to say, one of the frustrations that, around the capital programme is that, for me, is that, for every day we delay in delivering, the costs rise. So something you may have budgeted for at, I don't know, say £5 million for the sake of argument. By the time it seems, Borough Healthcare is a classic example of that. I remember first being on the council discussing replacement school 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I think I'm right in saying. And we still haven't put a spade in the ground. Now, the cost of a new school then would have been a fraction of what it is now. And particularly in these days with inflation fluctuating considerably, and the great uncertainties around the future of our economy and so on. I did, as a leader, I find, and I still find it very frustrating. And I think the idea, I think we have to be very prudent and careful about the way we spend capital, because it is all borrowed money and it is very expensive to borrow. But we have to balance that against the fact that the delays cost as well, in terms of the increased end cost of the project. And then when you then load it seems the ever-increasing regulatory burden that comes on these projects from central government in around net zero and other requirements, we're getting to the stage where an awful lot of projects which we thought were viable will suddenly become unviable, and probably were already there. And I do think, I think we need to find a way, and I think both within the council, but also in terms of lobbying central government, that actually we need to find a way of both formulating and delivering, and getting through the processes, planning and all the other processes, to get us to a point where we can start delivering and getting money out of the door, because these delays are very, very costly.
Thank you, James. A point well made. It's not only financial costs, but it's cost on potential service delivery as well. Border service delivered within inadequate buildings. And you can take it from the Borough Healthcare model down to potholes on the streets, which was tabled to be done in one financial year, but the money was used without completing the work, and so it's been delayed to the next financial year. And in the meantime, you had to do remedial work at a cost to deal with the issues. So it can be at both ends of the scale, from significant financial costs of a new school to a couple of 100 yards of Barber Green in the community. So challenges which senior management have to grapple with every day. So thank you. I can see Dr. Richards' cameras come on. Did you want to respond to Ellen, or were you going to
Chair, if you
respond in
don't
writing?
mind, if I could please email Councillor Vaughan with a proper update. Both transformation colleagues are in another meeting at the moment.
Okay, no problem. Comes Dr. Richard, and if you could copy Kath in as well. Danny, Councillor Danny.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure I read somewhere the other day that there was an overspend in the housing revenue account. I can't find it now. I don't know where I saw it, but I was just wondering if I'm correct, what impact will that have on any future housing projects?
The HRA is self-funding, isn't it? And I know Councillor Matthew is not in the meeting today. Would one of the Jane or Mary want to take that up? Was it revenue or capital?
I can't remember, to be honest. I know I read it somewhere the other day, and I've taken a note about it, and then now I can't find it.
Oh, Matt, brilliant. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, just to come in there, Chair. So as you just mentioned, then the HRA is self-funding, so from the rent. So, but I will get clarity on that, because you've got the HRA and the general fund. So I'll get clarity and email you back, Councillor Danny.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, in the revenue outturn, it's a 0.5% overspend. It's almost £500,000 overspend out of a budget of £89.3 million. It's on page 3.
Page 3.
On the revenue outturn. I hope we're working from the same papers. Mary.
Yeah, the housing revenue account was underspent, sorry, by just under 1.6 million in 24-25. I think that's.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the school delegate when I was quoting those figures. Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, no,
it's a line above.
Yeah, we haven't got a percentage because obviously as self-funding, it's as a percentage of 0, which never works. But yeah, so there is an underspend. The HRA will also need to cover the costs of any capital investment as well. But I can see James has got his hand up as well, and he might be able to add a bit more detail around that.
James.
I think the figures in the capital report, it's £855,000 overspent. The HRA capital budget was, so they're 21.9 million budget, £22.8 million spend. That will be taken from their future years' allocations. These schemes usually run for more than 1 year. So as you know, with building houses and works to council houses, these are ongoing schemes that last over a number of years. So it will reduce their allocation in future years by that amount. So no overall impact, because you can see we've already reprofiled sort of 15-16 million pounds forward there in the violence approved column. So we'll just be, I think we've pushed a little bit too much forward, so we'll pull a little bit back to cover that funding. So I wouldn't have thought there's much of an effect. It's just trying to get the spend right between years, which we managed to do pretty much this year, but there's some overs and unders, as you can see, throughout the capital programme.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you both, James and Mary, for correcting me. So thank you very much for that. Right, that's all we have today, apart from the forward work programme. Any comments on that? I know there were a couple of reports pulled from today's, well, at least one report pulled from today's meeting. Kath, there was one on the pay settlement and another one on, can you help me here? Yes, which will go to the September meeting.
Yeah, September's meeting, we're going to move the public sector pay award settlement update. and we're aware of, or I'm aware that there's an end of year transformation portfolio report, which is due to now come in September at the next meeting. It wasn't ready for this meeting, so that will be on for September.
Okay. September feels a very long way off. We'll have the Q1 numbers there, which that's finished already, but it'll be September before we see those figures, which is it feels a very long way away. Kath, that second report, the portfolio report you were talking about, can you explain to members what that is, or maybe
have to ask,
Councillor David Thomas?
Yes, in fact, that's the very report I was working on with officers just prior to joining this meeting. It's a highly detailed report. It's a significant improvement on previous reports, but I just feel it needs to be made a little bit more user friendly. So that's partly the reason for the delay. But it's the end of year report for the transformation program. But I think when you do see it, I think you'll certainly welcome it, and it does offer an awful lot of information.
Okay, and we can see set that against the future 5-year medium-term financial plans as well, to see that they dovetail into each other. So that's really useful, Councillor Thomas. Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments before I close the meeting? Nope. Thank you. Thanks all, especially the portfolio holders and members of the SLT and the heads of services. So thanks all. I'll stay online for a couple of minutes if you want a quick chat. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.